Hello and welcome to another episode of Guess That Record. I am your host, Jackson Reed. This is the show where we talk about music and try to figure out which album I pulled from my collection. Thanks once again for tuning in to another episode. Your support is always appreciated. We have an awesome guest today. One of the world's greatest ukulele players, this man has taken the instrument to places not thought possible, exploring genres like jazz, blues, and rock. He's recorded and performed with major names such as Jimmy Buffett, Bette Midler, Willie Nelson, and many more. His newest album, titled Blues Experience, is a collaboration with Mick Fleetwood and is available on October 18th. I'm super excited to be speaking with Jake Shimabukuro. How are you doing, Jake?
Hey, Jackson, I'm doing really well. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me on your show. Grateful to be here.
Absolutely. So you were just mentioning that you're on the road right now. Where are we talking to you from today?
We're in Kent, Ohio tonight. We're playing over at the Kent stage, and weather's been gorgeous. We were just in Columbus last night, and then we're heading to Fort Wayne after this.
Right on. So, and it's interesting, as I've been doing research for the interview. So you're originally from Honolulu, is that correct?
Yeah, born and raised in Honolulu, specifically spent most of my life in the Kaimki area near Diamond Head, and I still live there. Still home for me, and but very fortunate that we get to travel and visit a lot of different places, all over the world, and just grateful that music has opened so many doors and opportunities, for us. So yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah, I've only been to Honolulu once, but the one time that I went to Hawaii, we were mostly on Kauai, but we did pop over to Honolulu for a day. So yeah, no, it's a beautiful part of the world for sure. So it's really cool to be speaking with you today because I'm a musician myself. I'm a guitar player, and it's been really cool to kind of deep dive into your music because, of course, ukulele and guitar are probably cousins, but they are definitely different. So I'm excited to kind of pick your brain on the instrument and talk about your career as well.
Oh no, thank you. Yeah, I think that'll make for an interesting conversation. I've always loved the guitar. I can't play the guitar. I wish I could, but it's it's always been a bit of a challenge and a struggle for me.
Right. Now, speaking from my frame of reference as a guitar player, I often feel like ukulele has this reputation of being kind of a simple instrument, like, just pick it up and play like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, right? Like that's kind of I feel like the perception it has, but it's really cool with you because when I watch you play, I really feel like you almost kind of approach the instrument like a guitar, like you're doing stuff where I'm like, I get what he's doing there. So, how did you develop your style of playing?
Well, no, what you said, I think is absolutely true. I mean, there's so much truth to that, and I think that's what really drew me to the instrument. Is that it was so easy to play, and you get that instant gratification because, like you said, you can just pick up the instrument and immediately start playing chords, and there's so many chords that you can play with just one finger. You can just hold one finger, one string down, and you can play a full chord, and that's so satisfying, right? So I think that's why I stuck with the instrument, because from the very beginning I could do it, and I was like, wow, I'm actually playing an instrument. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, that kind of especially if you don't have the patience to really sit with the instrument and take lessons, and you have to read notation and all of that. I think in the beginning, picking up the ukulele for someone who just wants to do it just for fun, I think it's the perfect instrument because, like you said, it's so easy. It's very simple to play, And then the more you play, and as it gets easier and easier, then of course you gravitate towards something a little bit more challenging, like learning a new chord or how to hold a different chord quality or something. And you're like, oh, okay, okay, this is a little challenge, but you keep working on that, and then you just keep building. And like, so for me, I always just had this curiosity where I wanted to keep diving deeper and deeper. So as the things I was working on at the time got a little easier, then I would try to find something that was just a little bit out of my comfort zone and work on that until that became comfortable. And then once you're comfortable again, then you try to stretch yourself and reach a little bit out of your comfort zone again. And I think that's what really kind of kept me going, And I didn't, and I think. I never had that pressure to try to rush and get to a certain point, in a short amount of time. I just kind of took my time with it and enjoyed the process. And I think that's what I'm so grateful for, and all of those things, like, not only brought me so much joy in my life, but it's also opened up so many opportunities. And I met so many wonderful people, and have developed great friendships, along the way, all because of music. And so that's just been so yeah, I'm just so much gratitude, for all of that.
For sure. Yeah. And, of course, the reason we're talking today is because you have a brand new album coming out, which is called Blues Experience, which you did with the great Mick Fleetwood. And I actually want to go back a little bit because a couple years ago, you did an album called Jake and Friends, which had a ton of big name people on it, like, Warren
Hmm.
Haynes, Willie Nelson, Jimmy Buffett. And so you've been on this run of getting these big people to play on your records. So, like, how do you go about working with these people and setting up all these recording sessions to have these amazing special guests on records like this?
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate. I mean, you mentioned Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett has, in the beginning of my career, he really took me under his wing, and introduced me to so many people. I mean, half the people on that record, Jimmy introduced me to them. So between Jimmy Buffett and Mac McAnally, and my manager Van Fletcher, and just people that I've met along the way. Ray Benson, who's also from Asleep at the Wheel, he's also on the record, and he helped me to produce the record as well. And so, I mean, that he knows everybody. And I remember when we first talked about this project, Ray Benson said, he said, I got to get you, together with Willie Nelson. And I was like, what? And then next thing I know, he called him. He just called him on the phone, and explained the project to him. And Willie said, all right, I'm in. And so that was the first track that we recorded for the album, and it was his iconic, Stardust interpretation. And it was just so, I was so nervous, but it was so great because it was just ukulele and his voice, and I got to stand right next to him as we recorded it. So it was like a live take. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience that I'll never forget. But yeah, I've just been, very, very lucky, just to have this support, from everyone. And all the people on that record, man, they were heavily, they were just so influential. And I grew up listening to all, their music, and they've just, yeah, they're just incredible. So it was an honor to be part of that project.
This episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by Marvel Marketing. Marvel Marketing is an award-winning digital marketing company headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, working with clients in different industries from all over North America, including Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Marvel Marketing services include website design and development, website maintenance, search engine optimization, public relations services, and social media management, amongst others. To find out more, visit marvelmarketing.ca. This episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by Guitar Works. One of Canada's top independent music stores for over 30 years, Guitarworks carries a huge selection of musical instruments from the biggest brands of music, including Gibson, Fender, Martin, Yamaha, and Paul Reed Smith. Visit any of their 3 Calgary locations or shop online at guitarworks.ca and join the Guitar Perks program to earn money back with every purchase. Guitarworks, your total guitar store. This episode of Guess That Record is also sponsored by Recordland, home to the largest selection of music in Canada. Buy, sell, and trade tapes, CDs, and vinyl. Located in Calgary's Inglewood neighborhood on 9th Avenue Southeast, visit them in person or on Instagram at Recordland Calgary. And then, with this new record with Mick Fleetwood, of course, if you know Mick, you'll know that he's a Hawaii guy. And so, how did you first meet him, and then how did it come together to do an album with him?
Yeah, so of course I've always been a huge Fleetwood Mac. I've always been a huge fan of Fleetwood Mac, and Mick Fleetwood lived on Maui, for over 20 years. I mean, he's been such a big part of the community there, and so supportive of a lot of the local musicians there. Um, and so we had met years ago, and then but in the last couple years, again, we really connected. I went to go see their Fleetwood Mac reunion tour in Nashville, and the show was amazing, and I got to talk with Mick backstage. And then after that, fast forward another year, I did a show on Maui, and Mick and his family happened to be in town, so they came out to the show, and then we talked backstage again, and because and then we said, oh man, would love to do something together, and then right after that, we talked about just kind of setting up some time in the recording studio and just see what would happen, and so we didn't really have like any very detailed plans of what we're going to do. We just thought we'll get together, for a week and just kind of play and just hit record and see what would happen. So that's how this project came about, and it was just, for me, it was such an eye-opening experience. And to play with Mick Fleetwood, he's the kind of musician that has that energy and that quality about him, that he's able to elevate, everyone around him. So when you play with him, and he just like brings out your best, and he motivates you to play it, and do things that you've never done before. And that's how I felt with this record. He really encouraged me to just kind of go for it, and just feel it. And his the way he plays the drums, man, you just get this rush, and we just had the best time. I'm on tour right now with Jackson Waldhoff, this wonderful bass player from Hawaii, and he's also on this new Blues Experience record. And yeah, we often talk about that experience because it was unlike anything we've ever experienced in the studio before. So I'm really excited about this record. It's called the Blues Experience because it kind of we did like a couple of early Fleetwood Mac covers, like the when Peter Green was with the band, and the original Fleetwood Mac, and then we did like some Albert King and Gary Moore, some Jeff Beck, and so just really excited about it. It was very experimental. I did a lot of electric ukulele stuff with some wah and some long delay, kind of ambient things. So hopefully people like it. It was definitely a stretch for me, and kind of pulled me out of my comfort zone for a little bit. But like I said in the beginning, that's what it's all about, right? You want to just keep having those opportunities to kind of step outside of your comfort zone, and it was just a beautiful experience.
Yeah, for sure. And it's it's funny when you're talking about Mick there, because I saw Fleetwood Mac on their last tour when they played here in my hometown of Calgary. Um,
Mm.
and that was like 2019. And I thought Mick was like the most entertaining part of the show. Like his drum solo was amazing, and it's like, he's really he's really impressive when you think about it, because he's kind of the last of that generation of like late 60s drummers, right? He was right up there with Bonham and Keith Moon and Mitch Mitchell, and he's really like the last one of those guys still around, and still, still doing his thing, which is amazing. um and with as it is right now, we've got two singles out for this record, which you can find on your YouTube channel if anyone's interested. But there's Whiter Shade of Pale and Rollin' and Tumblin'. And I remember when I went to listen to these songs for the first time, I was sort of thinking, oh, is it going to sound like, kind of traditional ukulele, like a traditional ukulele interpretation? But you did these songs justice, because you got like full distortion on, and I was like, whoa, he's wailing on these tracks. And
Oh,
yeah, so
thank you.
how did you kind of develop your tones, and how you wanted to play these songs?
Yeah, it's just, constant experimentation and just trying different things. I used for this particular record, I used a Fender Princeton amp that Mick had in his studio, and that's the first time that I recorded with that amplifier. Um, and yeah, so there's definitely a brightness to it, and an attack, that's different from my usual stuff. um, but I loved it. Another element that I thought was pretty special is because we were all in the same room. I mean, I was like almost, just sitting right across from Mick Fleetwood. I mean, so we could see, we could make eye contact, and then Jackson, our bassist, was on my right, and then Michael Grande, who played keys on it, longtime friend of mine as well, he was on my left. And so we were kind of like in this circle, right? Like in this diamond. And the amazing thing is, I'm running my uke through all the different effects and the delays, and and the overdrives and all that. My wah pedal. So every time I would use some of my effects, mixed drums, we didn't isolate any of the instruments. So his drum sound was actually feeding into my piezo pickup. So I didn't have an open mic on my ukulele. I have a, piezo pickup under my saddle, and his drums were so loud, so they were actually feeding into the pickup. And when you would, and so his drums were actually, in a subtle way, going through all the different effects and my delays and all of that, right? Every time I was, so the ukulele and the drums are kind of like, they're very much like this. They're just there's this, I don't know, this magical thing. So even if when we were mixing the album, when you would isolate the ukulele track, you could still hear the drums. It was pretty amazing. So I think that added like that really, I don't know, there's this subliminal, almost like uh, live, even more than just live in the studio. This magic, of the two instruments just blending together so well. And so I thought that was really cool. I know it's probably a nightmare for engineers, but I really thought that was such a special thing.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like just the old school garage kind of concept of like, just put a mic in the room, and pick up not just the band but the room, and get all the energy together.
Mhm.
Now it's interesting because you often perform solo. So is it different to kind of work with a band in your case?
Um, yeah, for me, I love playing with drums and bass. I mean, it's my favorite thing in the world. I mean, that to have like to play with a rhythm section like that is so much fun, and I never take it for granted whenever I have those opportunities, but so yeah, so it's always, I mean, every time I get that opportunity, it's like, yes, it's like, yeah, I get so excited. Because normally, like when I tour, especially like early on in my career, I toured completely solo, right? So as a soloist, you kind of have to carry all the different elements, of the song and the arrangement. And then in the last like 10 years, I started incorporating a bass player, and that's been very. I just love the sound of the bass and the ukulele together because I feel like they kind of complete each other, because the bass is like the left side of the piano, and then the ukulele is like the right side of the piano, right? And so it almost makes like together they make like a full range instrument. And so I love that sound and the textures that we're able to create, right, with the two instruments. So when we do that stuff, a lot of times on the ukulele, I do have to carry more, like play, keep the rhythm going and play certain chord voicings to fill in the middle voices, and then keep the melody going on top of that, right? So it's a completely different approach. On this record, I'm able to completely get away from that, and I'm free to just play single line melodic, ideas, without having to worry about strumming chords or you know, playing multiple strings to cover the harmonic side of it. All of that is covered by the keys and the bass, and all the rhythm is, Mick Fleetwood is just driving the band. So it's yeah, it's just a rush, but it allows me to think in a completely different way, and I loved it. I mean, it was just such a rush and an honor, and and scary too, because we're in there with Mick Fleetwood, and all three of us are just like, oh my goodness. So it was but it was just a brilliant experience, and he was just so down to earth and so gracious and so kind and encouraging, like whenever if something wasn't feeling right, he would just stop. He goes, oh, let's try, let's try this, or maybe, let's take a different approach. So he's just so present, and um so present, and just such a team player. It was beautiful to experience that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so as we alluded to, at the start of the recording, you're currently on tour right now, and you've got dates going until pretty much the end of the year. Where can people find you on tour for the next little while?
Yeah, we'll be touring pretty heavily in the fall, October, November, December. We got yeah, some good tours lined up, so I'm very excited. We always do our holiday tour in November and December, and we bring our buddy Justin Kavika Young. He's a incredible singer songwriter, so he comes out, and I know we're gonna have a lot of fun on this tour, because we'll probably incorporate some of these blues standards on this new tour. But maybe, Justin will be able to sing a few of the songs as well, which would be a pretty cool element to add.
For sure, for sure. Well, we've reached the end of the interview. I want to thank Jake Shimabukuro for coming on the podcast today. I mean, I think I would say you're probably the greatest living ukulele player right now. So it's like it was really cool to speak
Oh,
with you and to hear these cool stories about all the amazing people you've had the chance to work with.
thank you, Jackson. Thanks for saying that. I just yeah, just growing up in Hawaii, there were so many great pioneers of the instrument and virtuosos of the instrument. I always want to give credit to Uncle Eddie Kamai and Ota-san, Roy Sakuma, Israel Kamakavivo Ole, Jesse Kalima, Peter Moon. I mean, these are all the guys who paved the way, for all of us. And I know I wouldn't be the musician today if it weren't for them. So, yeah, but thank you for saying that. And I just love it. I love playing. I love learning and having all these new experiences, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And Blues Experience with Mick Fleetwood is out on October 18th. Where can everyone buy the album if they're interested?
Yeah, of course, online, and then you can get the digital downloads. You can also purchase the CD or the. We're also releasing it on vinyl. We've been releasing all of our records on vinyl now, but you can get that on my website, jakeshimabukuro.com.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Guess That Record. Make sure to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen and tell your friends to check us out. I'm excited to announce that Guess That Record is now on the radio as a syndicated show. So far, it's been picked up for broadcast by CKMS in Kitchener, Ontario, CKXU in Lethbridge, Alberta, KBFG in Seattle, Washington, and South Devon Sound in Kingsbridge, UK. So if you're in those markets, be sure to check those stations out to hear the show. If you're with a radio station and you'd be interested in adding Guess That Record to your programming, send us an email to guessthatrecordpodcast@gmail.com. We'd also appreciate it if you'd follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our username on both platforms is @GuessThatRecord. And lastly, subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the video versions of these amazing interviews. Remember to keep rocking, and we'll see you on the next episode of Guess That Record.